at the time. And I stopped in mid-sentence, and I looked at her, and I said, I just realized something. And she said, what? I said, you're the problem. I said, it's not about the kids, is it? It's not about their education. It's about the next union dues that you can bring in here. That's what it's about. And until we get rid of the monopoly, get rid of the unions, and break the grip of the government running our educational system, we're going to be in the same shape that we're in right now.
The final question that was pre-submitted this evening, we'll start out with Ken. Why is it important for the Constitution to be followed? Why not just do what the people want by simple majority?
I'll borrow the example that I heard down at the Freedom 21 conference, and it was one that was attributed to the founders as the reason why they didn't want to be a democracy, that they wanted it to be a republic. And that was that a democracy put Jesus on a cross.
Well, the thought that comes to mind is a founding father, it was Jefferson, that said about binding man with the Constitution. And, God gave the law through Moses. The New Testament says that Moses was the meekest man. And if you wanted to have a governance of man, you'd want to have a meek individual in that position instead of someone of great arrogance. And yet, the meekest man was chosen to be the one that the law was brought to God's people with. So, thereby, I believe, indicating that we are to be a governance of laws and not of men. And the majority essentially is mob rule. It's whatever the mob wants to go. We delegate our authority to elected officials, a representative republic. That enables us to grow. If we all had to get together to make a decision every time, it would be hard to move forward because of the inability of trying to assemble a representative quorum in order to make a decision. Kansas City, Atlanta, where we're going to get together. So by delegating that authority to an elected representative by a representative republic, I believe gives us the structure we need, and yet the opportunity to hold and check through elections, and of course limit its functions through the Constitution if they'll follow. Right? If they'll follow.
I personally believe that our Constitution, our founding fathers, were divinely inspired. I honestly and truly believe that with all my heart. And when I look around Congress and I look around the state legislature today, I am more convinced than ever that we fall very, very short when it comes to the constitutional knowledge that our founding fathers had. But what's curious about that, they didn't really have this constitutional knowledge. They formed this from their history. And they gave us this incredible document that if we would just live by it. There is something that God has put in the heart of every single individual He's ever created. And that is the sense of freedom and liberty. That's the one common denominator that every one of us have. We want to be free. And by living by the rule of law, we are free. It was Thomas Jefferson said that those who wish, oh my goodness,
to feel like security, freedom for security.
Well, that's a good one too. That's not what I was thinking of. I always like to quote our founding fathers. It makes me sound smart until I forget what they said. But why should we live by the Constitution? Because it is a Republican form of government, little r. And a democracy, this frustrates me with our politicians today, I mean right to the very top, they talk about what a great democracy we live in. I'm telling you what, folks, our founding fathers fought tooth and nail to provide us anything but a democracy. And we want to stay as far away from that as possible because that is one step away from tyranny. You know, I may like your house better than mine. You know, walking down the neighborhood. And if I can get enough people to, hey, he's got a neat house, let's go get it.
Yeah.
And if we all vote, yeah, it just takes 51%. And then we can go get his house. You see, but that's not the rule of law that we live under. And as John said, and if you don't remember anything else, probably one of the most brilliant things that has been said tonight is this. John said it, and I'm mad that you said it first. So I'm going to repeat it. You'll think that I said it. All of this is founded on truth. It's truth. If it's not true, what is it? It's a lie. So everything that is not the truth goes against God's principles, His standards, His Word, and it's a lie. So you can't have this gray area that so many politicians love to talk about. So why do we need to live by the Constitution? Otherwise, if we don't, we're going to live in tyranny. And that's something none of us want to live under.
I think that's exactly right. And the more that I study the Constitution, and I have to admit I'm still relatively new in studying the Constitution. I wish I had it memorized at this point, but I still have to go back and read it. But the more that I look into it and look into the philosophy of the founders, I understand a little bit better on why they did what they did. And I look at the Constitution as a cage that keeps this beast of authoritarianism and totalitarianism or dictatorship, whatever you want to call it, and you know, where the few rob the rights of the many, or on the opposite pole, democracy, where the many rob the rights of the few. This is the only thing that keeps this at bay, and it's a very fine balancing act. And we have this republic because it's the best way to keep that balance of power in place. And as soon as we start to undermine it, or as soon as we start to neglect it, the tyranny gets a foothold, whether it's through dictatorship or through, the tyranny of democracy. So it's vitally important that we follow the Constitution. And I think it's vitally important that we resist democracy at all costs, and especially the opposite pole of dictatorship.
And I would just add finally what the founders said in the preamble. Because our question here was, why is it important for the Constitution to be followed? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. If we follow it, it will do that.
That concludes our pre-submitted questions. And if you happen to be sitting in the audience and you are one of those people that submitted one of these 8 questions, we want to thank you. If you submitted a question and you weren't able to get yours on the 8, we're going to open the floor at this time to any question. What I would ask you to do is to raise your hand. I'll point to you. If you want to state your name, that would be great. And I'm not going to ask for your address, your phone number, or what party you're from, or how you're going to vote. Just state your name, and if you would, please clearly point out the panelists that you're asking the question to, and just clearly state your question. And we're going to allow about 15 minutes worth of questions.
Mike Ritz, for Representative Wright, what can we do to address eminent domain, keeping it within its boundaries? I think Arizona has a great law we need to look at that limits eminent domain to what its real purpose constitutionally should be for.
You know, that's a great question. You know, one of the bills, I think it was last year, the year before, small little bill, almost nothing of a bill, and of course we only do 3 things at the Capitol: new law, repeal, or amend. This was a little amendment to that section that dealt with eminent domain. And currently, officials are empowered to condemn a blighted